What's up, Diablo 4 Druid? So if you're looking for speed, this is your build. This is going to be one of the fastest builds in the entire game for Druid. And why? Well, it's because you can just straight up teleport towards the target, and with Season 4's new additional tempering recipes, well, you can easily get 100% crit in this build, and it is going to be absolutely blazing through open world. Or if you want to do some speed pit runs, this is definitely going to be the build for you. So for starters, let's go over what has actually changed in Season 4 for the Druid. And it really comes down to being able to temper, getting insane amounts of critical strike chance on Shred and Werewolf critical strike chance. And that is very important because the way that the Druid scales in terms of the Werewolf is actually through getting a lot of crit, because it has two different separate multipliers on Shred that give you these big numbers. I have really subpar gear in the gameplay that you're about to see, and this is the build that I basically built with just in a few hours here. We maxed out because of course the new seasonal blessing. I wanted to try out Druid, and a lot of you guys were like, dude, this build is so crazy fast, drop the build guide. So just as a heads up, I don't have ranks to Envenom. That is going to make your build skyrocket in terms of damage. But basically, you run a two-hander, you throw on the Shred crit, you add the Werewolf crit, and then you can absolutely blaze through content, because with just this alone, I mean, just look at the amount of crit. This is just hitting the masterworking on specifically the Shred crit and the Werewolf crit strike chance. And then just with the base of your character, you have, of course, like the flat like 5%, plus you'll get a little bit from stats as well. You can actually make that go up way higher. But basically, once you do the Paragon Board, you can get easily about 50-ish% crit with just getting small crit rolls on your gloves, your rings, and your amulet. And this is not getting any of the greater affixes or getting the crit on masterworking. That's what these numbers are right here. It's basically just getting crit on your ring and then just going to 12 without, again, critting on it. If you do crit on one of these or even getting a greater affix, you will get 100% crit. Now, in the earlier stages, while you're leveling, because I was leveling up with this build, and it was by far one of the best leveling builds for Druid, you do require a set of things to get this build up and running. If you want to use it for leveling, the Waxing Gibbous will make your build skyrocket, because in the earlier stages, you're probably not going to get crit on every single piece of gear, and the tempering, you're not going to mess around with it that much. Although, ideally, you try to get those tempering recipes. But if you just get the Waxing Gibbous, plus getting one aspect, so first off, we'll explain what Waxing Gibbous does. It just makes it so if you kill something with Shred, for 2.5 seconds, you get 100% crit. And if you just keep on chaining this, you also get Spirit on Kill. It makes the build just fly through the entirety of the content. And it's a really common, unique, so it should be real cheap if you want to go ahead and trade for it. It's really easy to get. But specifically, you do need to get either Waxing Gibbous or the aspect of the Unsatiated, and then also get the Tempering Recipe. Any combination of those, you're going to be just flying through open world content. Because again, a lot of people will be leveling up with the Helltides, and there's pretty much no other like Druid build that cleans up things faster than this. I mean, you're literally teleporting across, just basically one-shotting most of the stuff, because, well, you're going to have very high crit. And then once you get specifically the ranks to Envenom, if you get this, you hit the lottery, this build will just fly through content. But as far as it goes, that's essentially what has changed with the Druid. It's basically, you just get a bunch of crit. And the reason why crit is so dang important for the build is actually in the skill tree, and I'm going to explain this really quick. So Shred has a multiplier over here, where Shred gains extra attack speed and heals you, and then with the Primal Shred, it's going to make Shred's crit strike damage get increased by x30. There is also another thing called Envenom over here on the tree, which makes it so poisoned enemies, and you always poison on a crit, and you're going to be critting a lot. The poison damage, though, by the way, does not matter. I know there was like a Blurred Beast and Dariel's build a long time ago. That got nerfed, unfortunately. But now, with Envenom, you just get just a huge amount of crit damage. So that's why the crit matters, and that's essentially how this build has evolved from the previous season. So basically, if you want to use this with leveling, all you need to get it up and running is Unsatiated for the most part. Ideally, Waxing Gibbous and the Tempers will make things much easier, but this is the only real thing that you need to actually get. And then if you get Shepherd's Aspect, this is going to be your big source of damage. So now that we went over kind of the introduction on what has actually changed with the Druid, let's hop into the skills, how we use them, and as well as the skill tree Paragon Board. So starting right off with the skills. So there are two bear skills. They are used basically to build up free fortification, but they also serve serve as a purpose for one of our skill tree's key passives at the very end. We need to be in Werebear for 2 seconds every 15 seconds to get an X50 multiplier in damage. And it's really not that bad. It's not like it feels terrible to use, because I kind of just activate it whenever I'm going in between packs monsters. I go ahead and activate one of these, and then I sit there for like a second, or I'm just walking for a second, because you can't just transform and retransform instantly, otherwise you will lose out on the buff. Again, this is only every 15 seconds that you need to do it, but it is our source of fortification to actually become tanky. And then Shred, we just hold it down and you're just going to be zooming across the screen. The pet skills, well, just like most of the Druid builds, you run them all, but you don't really need to push them at all. If you want to push them, sure, you can go ahead and use this ability over here that will strangle the enemies and stuff, but you really don't need it. As far as it goes, you could just forget about these skills. You need them on your bar, though, because it's required for Shepherds, so you get a crazy amount of bonus damage here. And then, as far as the last skill, again, Debilitating Roar, you just activate these in between packs, and then you just hold down Shred, and you just go Zoom. It's a really simple build, very beginner-friendly to play, and it's so satisfying. If you've ever played Path of Exile and you like Flicker Strike, this is 100% your build. Or if you just want to try something new, you're maybe over, let's say, the Wind Shear Druid, or Hurricane, or whatever you've been playing, this is, by a long shot, the fastest build. If you're looking to maybe get materials for other classes, maybe you need to get your Sparks, maybe you need to farm more of those Fiend Roses, or any of the crafting materials, the flowers, so you can reroll, this is one of the best builds for this. So again, it's basically meant for like a speed variant. So that's what Shred excels at. So as far as the skills go, that's how we use them. For the Spirit Boons, we're going to be taking less damage from elites. And then with Eagle, attack speed and crit strike damage are definitely going to be key. If you need the extra crit strike chance, it's not that big a deal, but these are way better. As long as you're not reaching and overcapping yourself on attack speed. And then we run Energize over here, so we can make it so dealing damage has a chance to restore some extra spirit, because none of the rest matter. And then Masochistic, because none of the rest matter for our build. So as far as the items go, and you do not need Harlequin, and you do not need Ring of the Starless Skies. I actually did not have both these in the gameplay here, but I did have a Harlequin, but at the time I didn't have Starless Skies. But as far as it goes, that can actually help out with the bosses. So this build absolutely deletes content. We'll actually get to some pit content. Here's a 50 over here, and you will see how the build kind of does against a pit. So it basically does suffer in the boss department, just like the sorcerer would, and that is because, well, there's not 3 enemies, so you don't get this X45 of like the bonus poison damage unless it spawns in some of these ads. But again, very, very fast build on the trash clear. It's just the bosses that will take a little bit longer. This was also recorded before they actually updated to actually make the bosses a little bit easier, so it'll be actually easier for this build as far as the bosses go when you actually go towards it. And also, the new pet came out. You can see I don't have the other pet. Equip the pet. It actually is bugged right now with Shepherds. This may get patched, but as of right now, you get the extra bonus damage while having that bonus pet companion. So it's another nice buff that I don't have gameplay of, but it doesn't matter. It's just free extra damage. Run the pet. You're going to run it anyways. I'm talking about the one that picks up the gold. But as far as the Uber Uniques go, again, you can play this build without it. Anyways, Harlequin Crest is great. Let's go over the aspects next. So we're running Vigorous, just more damage reduction while in Werewolf. Challenging's Debt, just more damage because you're going to crowd control enemies, so more damage as a werewolf. Don't worry about the werebear, it doesn't really matter. Concussive Strikes is excellent. If you need to run something else here in the pants, you can run Juggernauts. If you need to, fully cap yourself, that's fine. And then I really like Metamorphosis because this is a speed build, and I don't want to be ever like stunned or anything, so I really liked it because it kind of fits the playstyle of going as fast as possible while being able to avoid some sort of stuns. You can see we got stunned there for a second, activate Metamorphosis. It's just a lot smoother for the gameplay. And then Shepherd's Aspect, because it's like the best thing that Druid has. And then Accelerating Aspect, or you can run the Stampede. That's another option, but if you're going to do that, just throw Challenging Debts in the Amulet, and then throw Stampede over here, because you don't need the bonus pet, like, activation damage, because it doesn't do anything really for our build. Unsatiated, Ring of Starless Skies, or Stampede. I was running Stampede in the gameplay here, but yeah, Ring of Starless Skies is excellent because it will help you out with resource unless you happen to get your boots as well as your chest piece to be greater affix and or masterwork for the spirit per second. But as far as like the trash stuff goes, you're going to be totally a-okay on spirit, but on the bosses you may notice it kind of dips down unless you happen to have the spirit per second on those specific pieces of gear. Now, as far as the offhand, we actually want to run a two-handed axe just so we get some more damage there. And then Emerald, Ruby, and the Diamond. That's kind of like the standard for Diablo. But you can see up against the bosses, you may not have 100% uptime on vulnerability. So what you do want to try to roll on a lot of pieces of gear. It's kind of the standard thing with Diablo. Crit strike chance, attack speed, and you do want to get crit strike damage. Remember, it basically will multiply. If you get like 3 ranks to Envenom, at that point, you're looking at basically doubling your crit X multiplier, because remember, you get 30 from the Envenom, the regular, just your points 3 into Venom. Then you get another 30x because Shred. And then if you get this to actually roll on your amulet, that's where you can actually start pushing with this build. If you don't have it, don't expect to do like pit 100s, like especially if you're looking to do super fast without specifically getting that. But you can also look at getting a lucky hit chance to make enemies vulnerable. That is another great option for the build. But again, once you have good gear, you can start pushing way higher. But for the most part, again, the way that this build excels is at speed, not necessarily push. But it still is a really fun build at the end of the day. There's really nothing that beats it in terms of speed for the Druid, because you hold down the button and you let it just go zoom. But as far as other things, you could run maybe some sort of thing to get extra crowd control. You can maybe run like Shared Misery or something like that, or whatever you want in the boots category. But I just like Metamorphosis because it just makes the build excel at the speed. Now, as far as the skill tree goes, there isn't really anything too important here. At the very beginning, you just need to run something so you can put points into Shred. Then you get all of the bonuses over here for like damage reduction, get the extra crit. This also doesn't register in the tree, so make sure that when you're looking at your character stat, if you want to try to get 100% crit, it's so easy to do on this build. I mean, just with the masterworking over here, that's already 43, and then just getting crit on every single piece of gear, not masterwork, like crit or greater affix, you can easily get 100% crit, or just run Waxing Gibbous and you're done immediately. But then you lose out on the Shepherd's massive damage, just as a heads up. But yeah, you're getting the Primal Shred, and then you're going to get the Bear, so this is going to give you all of your fortification and your defenses. You do want to put points into Raven, because you need this. If you don't have Harlequin, you need to put 1 point into Creeper and Wolves over here. And then we are running the Trample, just because fortification, and it makes us wear Bear. And then you want to max out in Venom. This is just to apply the bonus. And then these are all extra points here. It's just free extra fortification. It doesn't matter. You can put this anywhere you want. And then we run all of these things for the extra bonus damage reduction, extra movement speed, which is actually really good. Speaking of movement speed, there is actually a cool thing that you can throw on. It's called Digitigrade Gate, and that allows you to actually move way faster in Werewolf. And since you're going to be a werewolf most of the time, that will give you more than just like the flat movement speed. But temper on, give the chance to freeze, stun, slow, all those things, because you need a crowd control for the challenging stat. If you don't want to run this, that's fine. You could just run the Stampede here and you're good to go. That's another like really great one to go ahead and mention there. But that's it for the skill tree. And now let's move on to the Paragon board. So for starters, we are going to be starting off obviously at the starter spot, and I'm going to go make it bigger so you guys can actually see it. So starting off with the Werewolf over here, and then moving up to the Inner Beast Territorial. So that's going to give us extra resource cost reduction. Next up, moving on to number 3, that is going to be Ancestral Guidance, Fang and Claw, and we want this for the damage bonus here. And then we are going to go down to Less for Carnage, so we get extra Spirit when we crit. And this is how we can kind of sustain a little bit better against the bosses. And if you happen to get really good crit, you may notice that you may not need like a resource cost reduction, which you can maybe roll in one of your ring slots for like the Temper. Not like the actual roll, because you want crit strike chance, crit damage, and chance to add the vulnerable proc chance. But this could be an option as well. So yeah, we're running Exploit over here, so we're going to have vulnerability with this. So unless you're killing things within 3 seconds, you need to run the other source of vulnerability. You can even run a Curse Touch if you want to. In fact, I think I was running it in the gameplay because my ring wasn't perfect. Again, I made this character in just a few hours in terms of like how powerful the character is. It feels really powerful, really fast, unless you're like thinking that you're going to be at like barb level of strength, like pushing like 80s and 90s really early on. It's mainly, again, meant for speed, just to keep expectations realistic. So the first 4 matter for this, because you can hit this because with Harlequin, it's going to give you additional willpower. So you'll hit this one over here. I know it says that we don't have the requirements. You'll hit it, don't worry. And then the last 2, that doesn't really matter the order, but you want Heightened Malice. This is how you're going to get massive damage. This is why it kind of sucks versus bosses too, to be honest, is you don't get that bonus until there are these small adds that come by. If the small adds come by, you'll see your damage just skyrocket. This is what is causing it. Also, you need Envenom to get like the amulet roll to have Envenom. But yeah, this is a huge, massive source of damage, so we're going to be taking that. And then for the last one over here, this is on the 6th one. This is Constricting Tendrils. It doesn't really matter what your last board is, but this one just gives you max life, or the other ones, well, that's like nature, lightning damage. It doesn't matter for our build, so we're just getting this as our last one. And then that one is going to be Spirit. So to recap real quick, the glyphs Werewolf, Territorial, Fang and Claw, Exploit, and Spirit over here. So that is going to go ahead and wrap up the build for the fastest Druid build in the game. Really, really great build, and it is definitely fun, but if you are interested in pushing, just to be a heads up, this is not going to be the best pushing build, especially until you start getting really, really good pieces of gear, and it's specifically getting all of your crit. Eventually, once you get everything to 12 out of 12 masterworking, you get that in Venom, you will be flying through content. Absolutely. You could probably do up to like 70s by in just a few minutes. We're talking like subpar 2-minute clear speeds. Definitely one of the fastest builds in the entire game. And then when we get to the boss, I'm gonna be honest, it's not like a super like one-shotty, like, you know, boss killer, but there's not really very many builds that like one-shot the pit bosses anyways, especially if you're expecting to one-shot a pit boss 100 with this build. It doesn't really do it. In fact, most builds won't. It's gonna take a couple seconds. But anyways, yeah, you're gonna be just deleting content. Really fun build. Let me know, guys, what you think of it, and if there's any suggestions to the build, definitely let me know down below, as I kind of want to do the min-max version of this build. I want to get that greater affix and Venom, and then I want to see how far this build can actually go, because it's by a long shot my favorite Druid build, because it's so simple to play. You just hold down the button and it just teleports you across the screen. But that's going to wrap things up. If you guys need the planner, I will link that down below. But thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed it or have any questions, let me know in the comment section below as well. But if you want to see an update to this as well as other build guides in the future and you're new here, hit subscribe and turn that bell on, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.